Hi, this is Alex from phpacademy.org, and this is another video tutorial created for the new Boston. Now, in this tutorial we're going to be creating a unique hit counter, and by unique hit counter I mean exactly the same as a non-unique hit counter. However, we're going to be recording the user's IP address, and by recording the user's IP address we're going to get a lot more accurate figure. It won't be entirely accurate because IP addresses obviously do change, but we're going to get a lot more accurate figure as to how many unique visitors we have taken on our website, so how many people have visited uniquely. So as per the last tutorial, the non-unique hit counter, if you've already watched it, we've got an index.php file, account.php file, and account.txt file. Now we're also going to have to include a new file, and that is going to be called, let's just save this file out. That's going to be called ip.txt. So we're going to have IP addresses in here of users that have visited the website that are going to be stored every time they visit. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to counter hit, but then we're going to take their IP address and we're going to store it in this file on a line-by-line basis. So we'll have, say, 127.0.0.1, and then we'll have another IP address on the next line, and we'll have so on and so on. So for now I'm going to leave this blank. The first thing we need to do though, before we do anything, is we need to check that the IP address doesn't already exist. Now we can use the file function in PHP to check or to read in a file on a line-by-line basis, which is then stored in an array. And what this does is it allows us to take each IP address on each line and carefully check each one on each line. So it's it's a really easy way of doing things. So the first thing we're going to do inside count.php is we're going to create a function called hit_count, and this is going to be called from index.php every time. So we have the freedom, we're including this count file, we're going to include count.php, and then we're going to have the choice if we want to hit count or not. So we can include it, but then we can use it, we could use it, say, inside an if statement, or say if a particular user is using the Chrome web browser, then we can count. So there's a variety of ways, a variety of benefits of using a function. So let's just call this function for now, so later on we can test it correctly. So in count at the moment there's a value of 0. In IP we don't have any IP addresses. So the first thing I want to do is establish the user's IP address. Now I'm going to be using a simple way to grab the user's IP address, and that is using the $_server predefined variable, and we're using remote address. So this is some environmental information about the user. So let's just echo this out, and we can see that that's going to produce my IP address. There's another tutorial on this if you haven't already watched it, and there's also another tutorial about how to properly detect the user's IP address. So I'm using this now for the purpose of this tutorial, but I recommend you look up the other tutorial that I've done and read in the user's IP address, or find the user's IP address a lot more accurately. So this is my IP address for now. I'm using a local server, so it's 127.0.0.1. Let's refresh and just blank that. So we've grabbed the IP address. That's something we determined at the start that we did need to do. Let me just swap these files around. Okay, so we've determined the IP address. Now inside hit count, the first thing we need to do is check if this IP address doesn't exist in ip.txt. There's nothing in there at the moment, so obviously for now it doesn't. So the first thing we want to do is we want to open up this file. So I'm going to create a variable called handle, and I'm going to say file. In fact, we can call this IP_file. So file, and it is ip.txt. Now let's just refresh to make sure we don't have any errors. Okay, we're error free. So what we've done now is we've created this variable called IP file, which is now an array, because the function file opens ip.txt, and let's say we have line 1, 2, 3, it'll open each line as an array, as a value of an array. So we've opened this as an array. Now what we need to do is use the for each construct to grab each IP address in there. So we've got each element of the array. So we're going to say for each IP file as IP, and what we can do to test this is we can echo out IP, and we'll put a line break there as well. So in fact we'll use a comma just to show that we've taken this as each element. So there's nothing in there at the moment, so if we refresh we're not going to have anything on the screen. However, if we add, say, test data new line, just pop a load of rubbish in there, each of these should now correspond for each loop of let's go back to the count.php file. For each loop of this IP will be each line. So let's refresh and test that. So you can see that we're grabbing the data on each line, and we can use this separately, so we can check each IP address. These will eventually correspond to IP addresses. So you'll notice that there's a space after each bit of data. Let's just change these to IP addresses so we've got a more realistic representation. Okay, so let's refresh. Okay, so we've got a space after here. Now you've noticed that we've not actually specified in here that we want a space after it. We've concatenated on this straight away, and that's because when we're reading it in on a line-by-line basis, there's always a space after each element in this array. So what we need to do is we need to use the trim function here to remove the white space from the left hand side and the right hand side, just in case there is any white space. Now let's refresh, and you can see that white space has in fact